Welcome to Wednesday Word for February the 10th, and I am so pleased today to welcome Cindy Lockwood as our special guest. Cindy, welcome to our broadcast today.
Thank you, Randy. Glad to be here.
Cindy's and her husband Chuck and their children Grace and William are longtime members of our congregation, but not everybody may know them, and so this is a chance for you all to get to know her because Cindy's taking on a new role in our church. She is the new chair of the Mission Council for this year and in the years coming. So, Cindy, would you just begin by sharing a little bit about your family and you and your connection to our church?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Randy. And I thank you for having me on. And I'm glad to be here. And many of the people who do know me know that I grew up in a small town north of here, about 3 hours. It's called Oxford, North Carolina. And I spent my entire youth there until I went to college at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, right down the road, not too far. And I got a degree in business and a master's in accounting there. And then after I left there, I went to work for KPMG. And funny thing is, one of our longtime members, Ken Braxton, who many people know, offered me my first job right out of school. And he was my mentor and did so much for me in the business world, helped me to learn about how to operate in a large firm and in the business world. And I'm very grateful for all he did. So I thought it was interesting. I didn't know that he was a member of Providence Methodist until after I had joined. And so it was a nice reunion to see him in the hallways and say, "Oh, Ken, you're here. That's great." So anyway, I worked at KPMG for a number of years. And then I met my husband, Chuck Lockwood, who is a Charlotte native, one of the few that we have around here. But he grew up in Charlotte and he grew up in the church at Providence Methodist. His parents, Charlotte and Tom Lockwood were longtime members. Chuck tells a story about going to their Sunday school class in the Brown building at Providence Methodist, which used to be, I think, in the parking lot of the church there. So there are pictures of it still back over near the parlor, I think, in the hallway. And he shows the kids and says, "This is where I went to Sunday school." And so they get a kick out of that. They think that's funny. But he grew up in the church until he moved away to Atlanta for college. But his mom, he has fond memories of the church too, because his mom was a great seamstress. And she had a craft group, and they actually created the tapestries that hang in the sanctuary. He says, "I remember those tapestries sitting in my dining room for months on end as they worked and sewed on them and created them."
How wonderful.
And so they hang, and also the kneeling benches, the cushions on the kneeling benches. His mom's craft group also helped do those needlepoint creations. So anyway, we have a strong connection to the church, and I was very thankful when Chuck and I got married, and I joined shortly thereafter. It's been over 15 years now, and I have loved it here. It feels like home. It feels like a community, and I'm very glad to be here. And I have obviously our kids grew up in the church as well. Grace is our daughter, who is 14 years old. She's in 9th grade at Myers Park High School. And William is our son. He is 12 years old in 6th grade at Carmel Middle. And they went to the weekday school at Providence Methodist, and we loved it there. And they are involved in the youth choir, handbells. They were in the children's choirs, very involved in the youth group. And I'm very thankful because I grew up in a church that had a strong youth and outreach. And I'm very thankful that my kids can be part of that too. So we're glad to be here, and I love the church.
Well, we're delighted that you all are part of our church family, that's for sure. And I want to thank you for taking on this new role as chair of the Mission Council. And you talk about the strength of our youth program. Another great strength of Providence UMC, of course, is its mission program, its mission ministry. And you are hitting the ground running as chair of that council. So how's that going so far, the transition?
It's going great. It's an interesting time, let me tell you, to be taking on a new role, especially in an outreach program like missions. But you're right. This church has wonderful missions, and as one of the council members mentioned the other day, it's in our DNA. I think Providence Methodist is in our DNA. It's just who we are, and I'm very thankful that we have a church that has members who are so giving and have generous hearts. And it's going well so far. I've been involved with missions throughout the years I've been at church, here and there. And then
Hmm.
several years ago, I got involved with Freedom School Partners.
Hmm.
Gina Lawrence was heading it up, and she's in our Sunday school class. And so she asked if I would like to volunteer. And so I started volunteering, and I've loved what they did. And they prevent learning loss for kids
Hmm.
who might be underprivileged over the summer. And
Hmm.
I was so impressed when I went to be a Harambee reader one day, and I just loved it. And
Hmm.
I have continued on volunteering as field trip chaperone, and I'm the supply shopper each summer. So anyway, that's how I sort of have really gotten connected onto the Mission Council. And I've learned about all the other missions that we participate in as well. So I'm thankful to be here so far this year. I've just started as the chair, and we've had our first meeting, and it's gone great. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's wonderful. And let's talk about some of those missions that we have ongoing. What are some of the missions that we can share with folks who may not know all the things that we're doing? Because there are quite a number of missions that this church has.
Yes, and I couldn't possibly name them all. I started trying to list them all out, before this, and I kept going and kept going and kept going. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I know I'm going to miss some, because not only, I mean, all of us are missionaries, so to speak, or involved in
Hmm.
missions, even if you're not on the mission council or if you haven't participated, between Sunday school teachers and the choir members who help us worship. And so many
Hmm.
people are missions, perform missions within the church. So and others through their Sunday schools. I mean, they donate money to other charities that I am not for profits that I am not aware of, but I know we each have such generous hearts and big hearts in
Mm.
this church. But from a mission council perspective, if you break it down into like three different areas, we have the local missions, we have international missions, and then we have apportionments.
Hmm.
And so for the local missions, we have about four partners that we support. Large, we have four of our largest partnerships are with once the Charlotte Rescue Mission, who helps addiction people recover from addictions,
Hmm.
and the Rebound and Dove's Nest fall up under Charlotte Rescue Mission. And
Hmm.
then we have the Freedom School Partners, which I mentioned to you earlier, that we support, which is a 6-week program over the
Hmm.
summer to help kids from having learning loss, or they help them to continue to read over the summer. And then we have What's Next Ministry
Hmm.
that is actually celebrating their 10th year anniversary this year. I just learned from David Parr the other day. And that was co-founded by Denny Hammock and David Parr, who are
Mm.
members here in the church, and they do wonderful things with urban children. It started in the Greer Heights neighborhood, and they develop
Hmm.
relationships with those kids and continue on with them even after they graduate high school and potentially go to college or military. So that's another great mission that we have. And then we also have what's called Roof Above. It's a merged organization that was Men's Shelter and the Urban Ministries. Those two ministries merged and became A Roof Above, which their goal is to end homelessness as the primary goal, but they also
Hmm.
provide other services, employment opportunities and things like that. So those are our four. I think I've got them all: Charlotte Rescue Mission, Freedom
Hmm.
School Partners, and What's Next, and
Yep.
then A Roof Above. So those are our four local missions that we partner with.
Hmm.
And then internationally, we focus a lot on Haiti. So Haiti has been a connection of the churches for many, many years.
Mm.
And the last year would have been the 40th anniversary of our partnership with Haiti. Unfortunately, with COVID, we weren't able to have the big celebration that they wanted
Right.
to. So we're hoping that maybe this year um, we could celebrate that anniversary, that milestone. But we have to wait and see how the COVID guidelines
Indeed.
loosen up a little bit. So we have Haiti, and we've had the microcredit loans that fall under there, the
Hmm.
educational support, the medical mission with Dr. Eugene. And then also outside of Haiti for international, we have the Zoe Ministry, which we support. It's an orphanage in Kenya, and we've
Hmm.
had a partnership with them for several years now. So we support one of the working groups there. And then we also, for international, we support missionaries that are overseas. And everyone, I'm sure, is familiar with Jamie and Holly Wallen, who
Indeed.
were members of the church. And our members, Susan and Jim, are here as wonderful members. And the Wallens have kids our age, so I got to know them as they were still in the States, and the kids played together, and we enjoyed that. So we're happy to support them. But we also have a new set of missionaries that we just decided at our last council meeting to start supporting, and that is Dan and Courtney Randall. And some of you may already know that Courtney is Dulcie Michael's daughter, and Dan's her son-in-law. So we're thrilled about supporting them. They're going to be in the Methodist Liaison Office in Jerusalem. And so you'll be hearing more about that through the newsletter and maybe another Wednesday word. And so be on the lookout for that. But we're excited to be supporting them this year too. So those, I think, are our main mission partners in the details. That, granted, there are so many others between Sunday school classes and WMU and, just the other people in our other congregation members who have passion for other ministries, and they do on their own outside of the Mission Council. So.
Yeah, with regard to the local ones, I know that some years back, the decision was made to narrow our focus to those several that you mentioned so that we can have a greater impact on each of them. But you're absolutely right. Of course, we've known this past year, we've had some somewhat impromptu mission outreach through Second Harvest with boxing of food and Medicist and assisting with regard to that, shelving of medicines and giving medicines to those who are impoverished. So there are all kinds of ways in which this church continues to reach out. And of course, through the pastor's discretionary fund, that's also a missional outreach of our church. So you're entirely correct. We have had so many different ones. And it makes me think about, with regard to 2020, this was a year in which much of our church life was reduced and closed because of the pandemic. But it doesn't sound it at all that
No,
we
not
lost
at
a
all.
step from what you were just sharing, does it?
Yes. And I think for Room in the Inn was another one that was different this year. We weren't allowed to have people, in our church. However, we were providing meals, and they did have shelter in other places. And there was a sign, Brandon Dirks, the mission director, he said that Chad Kelly, who's in charge of Room in the Inn for our church, said the sign up genius for the meals filled up so quickly. So
Wow.
that just speaks to how much our congregation wants to help in some way during this pandemic. So they definitely have been there. And even you, Randy, I think you mentioned one time that you were getting calls for people saying, how can I help? They
Exactly
want
right.
to help. So I'm just so impressed with that. During the pandemic, everybody is definitely opening their hearts.
You've said that well. It's been a great response, and I'm so proud of serving here at the church along with you and others who have that great passion. Well, as we turn the calendar here recently, it's hard to imagine we're already in the month of February, but what do you see for Mission Council this year? Again, as we're still affected by the pandemic, but as we're making plans, what are you looking forward to in 2021?
Well, we have a tentative date set. One thing that I'm excited about, we've had this event at our church before, is the Rise Against Hunger. It used to be called Stop Hunger Now. Some people might remember it as that, but now it's called Rise Against Hunger. And we have a date set tentatively for April 25th right now to have another food packing event in our church. Now, if the COVID guidelines do not allow that, because it is something that we probably need to do indoors, and it requires quite a few people interacting with each other as they move the food around. But if that doesn't happen, we have a tentative date for later in the year. So we do plan to have one of those events, hopefully this year. Fingers crossed that by later in the year we'll be behind this and be back to our normal routines. But that's one that we're looking forward to, is the Rise Against Hunger. And another date that we have set is at the end of August, is the return of the attic sale for missions. So right now, I think it's scheduled for August 27th and 28th. And depending on, hopefully by then we'll be back to normal and can invite the public into our church to participate in the attic sale for missions. So we've got that going on. And then hopefully Freedom School Partners will continue as well this year at the end of June or beginning of July. Last year, they had a revised type of program where we could not maybe volunteer and go on site and help. But this year, hopefully we'll be back to a more normal program where we can have people come and read books to the kids and help out with, parent meals and things. So those are things we have on the agenda right now. We're hoping to be able to do more than that. And of course, even if we can't get together in person for some of these large events, we still have signups that we can help with, like you're talking about, Second Harvest, MedAssist, Loaves and Fishes, Heart Math Tutoring, and we're putting these opportunities to volunteer in the newsletter, the email that's emailed out.
Mhm.
So feel free to, get the information from there. But if there's anyone else who wants to volunteer and wants to know how they can help, feel free to reach out to Brandon or to myself, and we'll be happy to connect you with the right place.
Very good. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for spending time with us today and for sharing. And I am excited, as I clearly see you are, with regard to the mission opportunities that are before us. So thank you again
Yes,
for
I
being
am. Well,
part of
thank you, Randy.
this
I
today.
appreciate it.
Blessings to you and blessings to everyone else.